I get it, thanks, said the student, turning to leave. But we've only just begun, I said. We still have to talk about stress. Stress, he said. Not that kind of stress, I replied. In poetics, when we use the word stress, we're really talking about the same thing you learned in grade school when you were taught about accented and unaccented syllables. In poetry study, we prefer the word stress. We say that every syllable is either stressed or slack. In traditional poetics, poets tend to line up the stressed and unstressed syllables in regular patterns. A stressed or accented syllable is one that is spoken a little louder than an unstressed or slack syllable. But isn't it just how I happen to say a word, he asked. No, not really, I replied. Yes, you can sometimes vary standard pronunciation for the purpose of the moment. You can say, for example, no, I am not going to the damn movie. But that's not quite what we're talking about. Standard pronunciations are part of the way words create meaning and can't be ignored. For example, if I ask you to pronounce this word, well, if you're an American, you'll say advertisement. And if you're British, you'll say advertisement. But you will never say advertisement. We use accent in English to help convey meaning. Sometimes we do this by shifting the stress depending on whether the word is a noun or a verb. For example, we say record as a verb, record as a noun, object as a verb, object as a noun, present as a verb, present as a noun. Okay, that I understand, said the student, but this is starting to seem very complicated. How do I learn all this? It's one of those things that seem complicated when you try to describe it, but really, it's something you already know if you're a native speaker of English. It's just a matter of becoming aware of what you already know. When you read a poem aloud, listen to yourself speak in your natural voice. Poetry does not have all the resources of speech, so it is difficult for a poet to change the inherent accent of a word to create meaning. This means that you can almost always trust the normal pronunciation of a word to guide your sense of the rhythm. What you will find is this. Almost all two-syllable words have one accented and one unaccented syllable. Words longer than two syllables are a little trickier. But if you listen to the word in context to determine whether the word should be given one or two accents, you will probably almost always be right. As you read aloud, keep in mind that in traditional poetry, as a rule, a poet is employing regularized natural stress. Let's take the word meaningful, for example. A dictionary will tell you that there's a primary accent on the first syllable, the root syllable, mean, but it may also tell you that there's a secondary accent on the last syllable, full. So how do you deal with that secondary accent in a poem? Listen to these two lines. On a meaningful jaunt in the woods, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. Meaningful is what I want this class to be. Da-da-da, da-da, 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 da-da. In the first example, the third syllable of meaningful is unstressed. In the second example, it is stressed. The rhythm of the line determines the stress on the last syllable of meaningful. Got it? Sort of, he said. Well, let's take some more lines for practice. Remember, traditional poetry organizes stress into patterns to create rhythms. 'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house. Notice the stress on every third syllable, creating that fast, rollicking rhythm that students like to call flow. Also notice that in this case, neither syllable of the two-syllable preposition before gets an accent. That would interrupt the rhythm. Here's another. As I came to the edge of the wood. Again, we have that same pattern of unstressed, unstressed, stressed, even though the pace feels a little slower. And here's our last example. Because I could not stop for death. Here the stress comes at every other syllable. The rhythm is even, as in the other examples, but the line is slowed by the quick recurrence of the stressed syllables. Now I absolutely get it, he said. Wonderful, I replied. So that means you're ready to talk about feet.